I now give the floor to Ms. Vivian van de Perre.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on and the mic is on. Can you hear them?
Yes.
You have the floor,
Apologies,
madam.
we're having some difficulties here, but I hope you can hear me. Good afternoon, Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council. Madam,
Hi, MONUSCO, can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you. Can you hear
Okay.
us?
I can hear you, yes. It's a little low, but I can hear you. Can we zoom in the camera?
Zoom in the camera.
Zoom in the camera.
Leta kompyuta yote mbele.
More.
Leta kompyuta yote mbele.
More.
Yeah. Tena.
More. I cannot hear the sound.
Sound.
No sound.
Sound mean
Yeah, leave the camera there. Yeah, okay. Okay, he's moving right now. Yes, the acting force commander and the
She
yes.
cannot hear.
I cannot hear them. The president is talking to me.
Okay, you're welcome. Anasema na mwenye chini mwenye kwa kamera atoke. Amesema mwenye anaonekana kwa kamera atoke. So adjust hizi tutoke sisi wote. Hata na kamera ikae tu venye ilikuwa. Amesema kamera iko sawa.
She cannot hear.
Cannot hear the president.
Speak.
Hi, MONUSCO, they're waiting for you to speak.
Thank you, President. We apologize deeply for these technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
You have the floor, madam.
Thank you. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council, Madam Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Rwanda, and other distinguished ambassadors and representatives. Thank you for convening an emergency meeting of the Security Council to follow up on the situation in Goma. Allow me to share with you our understanding of the current situation and the implications for MONUSCO. The escalating clashes in eastern DRC have resulted in massive displacement. More than 178,000 people fled Kalehe territory when the M23 took over Minova, with more than 34,000 of them seeking refuge in already overcrowded existing IDP sites in and around Goma. This surge has exacerbated an already dire humanitarian situation and also a protection situation, overwhelming Goma's infrastructure and compounding challenges related to water, electricity, and medical services. Despite the deliberations and the appeal by member states at the Emergency Security Council meeting on 26 January, the M23 RDF launched an attack on Goma using heavy direct and indirect fire within hours after the conclusion of the Security Council meeting. These attacks continue to ravage the city, killing, injuring, traumatizing, and displacing civilians and exacerbating the crisis. In accordance with its obligations under international humanitarian law, during the last few days, MONUSCO has received a large number of people seeking refuge, including officials and various elements who have surrendered their arms, which underscores once again the critical role of peacekeeping in such a volatile environment. The mission's human rights component also continues to receive requests for individual protection measures from human rights defenders and civil society organizations, and is working internally and with external partners to ensure their safety. However, MONUSCO's bases are not able to accommodate the large number of surrendering elements and civilians seeking refuge. Moreover, our bases are not safe themselves. 2 mortars fell in MONUSCO bases and compounds in the last 3 days, as well as countless bullets. Installations of former police unit staff in Jambar camp have been destroyed and burned. MONUSCO is storing voluntarily relinquished or abandoned weapons in accordance with international standards. MONUSCO is taking concrete steps to secure these weapons surrendered by various fighting elements to avoid any possible scenario where the mission could be put under pressure to hand over those weapons to any group. Casualty evacuation efforts remain a significant challenge. During the fighting in Sake, which began 4 days ago, peacekeepers were seriously injured. We continue to do our utmost to ensure timely evacuation of injured peacekeepers and other casualties to a level 3 hospital in Goma, despite continuing challenges. The fighting of the past week has also severely hampered supply convoys and consumed many resources held by MONUSCO's units. Damage to camps, including water tanks, generators, and vehicles, has further exacerbated the situation. Many troops are now running out of critical equipment, especially water, food, medical supplies, and blood. In some camps, fuel shortages have rendered generators inoperable, affecting communications equipment. In addition, a significant number of non-combatants have sought refuge in MONUSCO's camps in need of food, water, and medical care, further straining already limited supplies. The MONUSCO warehouse at the airport has been looted, further depleting supplies. The courthouse in Goma has been looted, and I can continue with this list. The proliferation of weapons in Goma poses a significant risk as combatants blend into the civilian population and abandoned military depots are looted by civilians. The mass influx of internally displaced persons without shelter, the separation of families, the proliferation of armed elements, and the escape of prisoners following a breakout from Goma prison increase the vulnerability of women and children to sexual and gender-based violence. Therefore, in line with the appeal of the Bishop of Goma, we call on all parties and the population to guarantee the protection of life and access to basic services for all and to prevent sexual violence. Armed clashes in Masisi, Rutshuru, and Nyiragongo continue to result in civilian casualties and displacements, further escalating the humanitarian crisis. Electricity and water supplies remain disrupted in Goma, and medical facilities are completely overwhelmed. Due to the intensity of the ongoing combat and the proximity of the front lines, humanitarian operations have been suspended or readjusted. Immediate action is required to alleviate the suffering of civilians and enable life-saving humanitarian efforts to proceed. Moreover, ethnically motivated attacks in a region with a very sensitive history need to be taken seriously. In the past 4 days, the Human Rights Office has documented at least 1 case of ethnically motivated lynching in an IDP site in Goma, as well as physical and verbal violence against journalists in Goma, all due to their perceived ethnic identity. In light of the ongoing crisis, we urgently require the end of jamming and spoofing, as well as the establishment of humanitarian corridors between Goma, Minova, and Bukavu. This will allow the resupply of essential items, the rotation of humanitarian staff, and the safe movement of civilians. We also appeal for the establishment of high-level diplomatic channels to ensure that critical airports, border points, and humanitarian access routes are reopened without delay. We stress that military action cannot resolve this conflict. It is imperative that all parties cease hostilities and commit to political dialogue in order to prevent further civilian suffering. Resuming the Luanda process is of the utmost urgency to ensure a path towards de-escalation and to avert the looming threat of a third Congo war. We remind all parties of their obligation to uphold international humanitarian law and stress that attacks on United Nations peacekeepers may constitute war crimes. The degree of suffering that the population in Goma and its environments is enduring is truly unimaginable. Let us please draw on our humanity and do our utmost to bring an immediate end to such levels of violence and suffering. In conclusion, the situation in Goma requires urgent and coordinated international action. Despite the significant challenges, MONUSCO continues to play a vital role in this crisis in the Eastern DRC and has proven to be a beacon for myriad vulnerable groups seeking protection. However, the mission is challenged in ensuring the safety of its staff and premises, which has been severely impacted by the heavy direct and indirect fire used in these last few days, and to address the logistical, human rights, and humanitarian challenges we are all facing to ensure the mission's continued effectiveness. We call on all parties to prioritize the protection of civilians, open humanitarian corridors, and work towards a sustainable and peaceful resolution of the conflict. I thank you very much.